Hey gang, Rodin here. Welcome on back to the Retrocade and another episode of WTF Wednesday. The series where we take a look at games that either were very controversial for the time or on paper seem like good ideas, but in actuality, maybe not so much. And for this one, we're going to go back to 1988 and the height of the good old NES. And we're going to play a game that was honestly one of my favorite games of the decade, but is also one of the most polarizing. We're going to play Castlevania II, Simon's Quest. Now, it usually doesn't take a lot for me to have to explain anything about... I'll pause it right here really quick. About this game for most people to understand anything in regards to Castlevania. So, when the original Castlevania came out in 1986, I, like a lot of gamers at the time, was really interested in it. But it was also very much a game that had a high difficulty curve. And for a lot of us, it was one that really didn't appeal to us. So when we found out they were doing a sequel, it was like, okay, well, we'll take a look at it. And then when we found out it was more of a classic role-playing game than an actual side-scrolling action game, for kids like me who were looking to get into the series, but again felt a little intimidated and disenfranchised by the original one, this felt like a good point of entry. Now, the problem being that in the immediacy of Castlevania's popularity, that Hitoshi Akamatsu, who was the director of all three of the original Castlevanias, he directed Castlevania 1, 2, and 3, went so far in a different direction with this game, it really divided a lot of early generation fans to what they were looking to do. So, how this game works is pretty simple. You are Simon Belmont, and this game takes place 7 years after the events of the original Castlevania. Now, what we are tasked with doing is we have to go and find the remains of Dracula that are scattered in 5 different tombs, bring them back to the now destroyed Castlevania, and essentially resurrect Dracula long enough to ultimately destroy him again. So, I brought this start menu up because, unlike the original Castlevania, this game has an inventory system that shows us what we have on our person. So we have a leather whip, we have 50 hearts. Hearts are currency in this game. E is experience. This is the first Castlevania game that had an experience gauge on it. And the L, I believe, is the number of lives we have, of which we only have 1. And we have the timer, which is the time of day. Now, one interesting metric that is in this game that was not built into the original game was the concept of passing time. So anytime we come into a church, we can automatically heal. And our B button is our whip. A button is jump. Now, in these different towns, and there's a bunch of them scattered throughout Transylvania, there will be these people here. A crooked trader is offering bum deals in this town. Now, whenever you see somebody with a cloak here, that is a vendor. And we do want to buy a white crystal. And now there is this vendor here. Want to buy holy water. We do, and we're going to come back and get that in a bit. Because holy water is one of the most versatile items in this game. And also, unlike the original Castlevania, we don't swap out items as we pick them up. So one thing I want to be able to do is I want to go this way. And now the townspeople will tell you different things. So clues to Dracula's riddle are in the town of Veros. Now, I will tell you, we're not going to play through this whole game, but what I want to do is I want to play for about a half an hour and give you an idea of what a flame on top of the 6th tree in Dennis Woods. And there's this vendor here. Buy a thorn whip. Now, we do get upgraded whips as we go through the game. I'm not going to buy this one. But what I'm looking for is we're at 16, 18. So if you think if you go by military time, which is what you need to, so it's a 24-hour clock. It's like 4:30 almost. What we want to do is we want to get to night, because when we get to night, the citizens will go and they will be inside their homes, and then we will have monsters out here in the town that we can attack and be able to get hearts and experience from. So we'll do this once because I want to be able to get holy water. And we always know it will go to night because we'll say, what a horrible night to have a curse. Now at night, all the monsters that we come across, save what is in the town with these hags, are much stronger. But the hags give off these little half hearts, which are 4 hearts apiece. So we picked up 2, so we've got 8. Now, if I want to be able to highlight anything like this white crystal, I push down on my D-pad, and then I can go over and put this blue arrow, so it's essentially locked in. And in different towns, the undead hags that you run into can also be of different strengths, because this is the first town in the game. They take 2 cracks with a leather whip and then they're gone. And something I like to do is I will sit there and I will try and kite them over here and see if I can get more of them, because it increases the risks that we'll be able to get hearts that way. Now, I will say this is a bit repetitive, and it can be a bit annoying. But it is the best way that I've still found after 35 years to build up money in a short amount of time. Now, one other aspect of this game that was actually quite novel for its day was this is one of the very first games that I can recall, and if you've found other games from this era that had a similar mechanic in it, by all means, leave it down in the comments, because I'd like to know. But this is one of the very first games that I can personally recall, like I said, that had the prospect of multiple endings. And it depends entirely on how long it takes you to finish the game and how many times you die. Now, I will say that this game it's got parts to it that can be challenging enough that make dying a little bit easier. But if you can finish the game, I believe if it's under 4 hours, and if you manage to get through it and not die, you can get the best ending. If you take a bit longer, and I think if you die less than 5 times, you get the B ending. And you just go from there. And you will always know which ending you get because you will get a different epilogue. That's how you know. Once you beat Dracula, there's nothing that will indicate to you what the ending game, what the epilogue will ultimately be until you've defeated Dracula, and so now we get the morning sun has vanquished the horrible night. And actually, I'm wrong. There are 3 possible endings in this game. So we now have 80 hearts, which was not an unprofitable little approach. And I want to buy holy water. Yes, I do. So now that we have holy water, we can go this way, and we can start making our way towards... So what you want to do to be able to launch a secondary item is you hit up and A. And again, we have unlimited holy water now that we have it in our inventory. So the 3 endings that you can get in this game have Simon. In 2 of them, Simon does not ultimately survive the battle with Dracula. And if you can beat the game in 8 game days, then that puts you in line to get the best ending. I knew that was going to happen. I got impatient. Alright, come up this way. What I'm hoping I can do is I can get through the first mansion where we will get the first component of Dracula's corpse. But before I do that, I want to go this way. Because I want to come down here. Whoops. So turn right for Davvy's Path, left for the Varus Woods. And I'm going to come in here to the church. Rest here for a while, and we get our health back. So if you look at the experience meter now, we're at 69 experience, we have 48 hearts. And we're 15 hours into day 1. So, once we get to 100 experience, then we will be able to level up. Now you come in here, and it doesn't look like there's anything here, but you can see down below on this screen that there is, and that's where the holy water comes in. The holy water is good for knocking out fake blocks. And we have a vendor down here. And usually if you come down here and find the vendors in these secret areas, purchase a chain whip. It's 150. And that's what I want, because the chain whip is like the tier 3 whip. So I'm going to come along here, and essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some heart farming for a bit. Now granted, these guys are only giving me hearts that are worth 2. And now we got What a Horrible Night to have a curse. So now I can go back to town, because everything out here in the wild is going to be a lot more powerful. But this gives you an idea of how stronger they are, because now they take 4 hits with a leather whip. But they also give you half a full heart as opposed to the little ones. And those birds love to drop down on you when you're not paying attention. And they can be really annoying because they will drop in waves like that, but then they will zip at you. So really what I'm looking for is I want to be able to kite the hags over here. And I'm getting awfully close to getting hit by them, so I've got to be really careful because I don't about halfway down my life bar. But you don't get money bags and you don't get other stuff in this like you do in the original Castlevania or in Castlevania 3. And a lot of people ask if this was the change in how the game was designed related to Metroid. Which nowadays you could look at and say, well, of course, because we have a whole genre of what we consider to be Metroidvania games that are predicated on this very idea. But actually, that was not the case. Oof, if I get hit again, I'm gonna die. So, where are we at here? It's 2:39 in the morning. Now, there is medicine that you can get that will restore your life. They're called laurels. How much money do we have? We have 84. So not as much as I would hope. But unfortunately, we can't really survive that long. So we get hit again, that's not going to be good for us. Well, and we just leveled up, which could not have happened at a better time. And hopefully that heart will still be here. So this game was actually predicated on another Konami game that came out at the same time called The Maze of Gallius. It never came out on the NES. It was released on the MSX computer, which was big in Japan and Eastern Asia during the mid to late 80s. You'll remember that I played the original Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 on that console. Ow. Ah, gotta get out of here. But that was what Akamatsu and his team took inspiration from to make this version of Castlevania. Now, the other thing to bear in mind is that really you can very easily make the claim that without Castlevania II proving that the concept could work, you would not have arguably one of the best games of the latter half of the 20th century and easily one of the best Castlevania games of all time in Symphony of the Night, which is a game I have played to death. I absolutely love it. It is hands down my favorite Castlevania game. It is hands down one of my favorite PlayStation games. So now I gotta come down here, knock this out. Big ugly floating eyeballs. And now we went and got the flame. Now, how the flame works is that it will put up a wall, or a single column of flame that can damage anything that happens to run into it. But I'm not going to do it only because it every time you use it, you burn up hearts that you can't afford to spend. So I want to go back this way, and I want to go back to town really quick. Ow. And now we've hit the point where we're going to have to deal with Curse again. And these things get much, much stronger. So hopefully we can survive long enough to get back to town. Alright, let's get through these guys really fast. Where are we at? We're 124. So if this works out, we should hopefully be able to have enough money that I can get the chain whip, and we'll still have enough time to go through the first mansion and get the first component of Dracula's corpse. Alright, come on, hags. Now, because if you want to get the best ending, you've got to beat it in 8 days. It does put the pressure on you to get as much stuff done each day as you can. Because you have 5 mansions to go through. You have 5 pieces of Dracula's corpse you have to obtain. And once you've done that, then you have to get back to Castlevania, get to the throne room, and then have the final showdown with Dracula. So you don't really have a whole lot of time to waste, which is why it is worthwhile to skip a lot of the initial stuff, like getting the Thorn Whip and building your inventory up slowly. And just get cracking on it. So we've got enough that I can get the Flame Whip. So what I'm going to do, or the Chain Whip rather. And it's going to be daylight in about 30 seconds. Yep, 6 a.m. That's when the sun comes up in Transylvania. So come in here. Drop this down. We get ourselves the Chain Whip. So do that, and now having essentially a tier 3 whip does a heck of a lot more damage. So I want to come in here, get healed by the priest. And we got about 5 minutes left. But fortunately the mansion isn't too far away, so we'll blast through this one so you can get an idea of what you have to do in order to complete these different quests. But as you see, now having the chain whip, this thing just does so much more damage. And we have arrived at the first mansion. Now, all the mansions look like this, but trying to get to them, some of them are harder to reach than others. So now that we have the white crystal, we have this lift here. So to give you an idea, if I turn this off... Actually, I'm not able to, but if I did, this lift would go away, which is why it was so critical that we got it. But now, this is a bit more like traditional Castlevania in that we're going to have to work our way through all of these different levels. And reach the area where we will be able to obtain the piece of Dracula's corpse we need to progress further. Those gargoyles give us full hearts, which is really nice. And one thing we have to make sure we get in here drop slime. Is an oak stake. And there will be a specific vendor in here whom we can buy the oak stake from. Now the question is, am I going to be able to survive getting back through all this? Nope. I got hit right there. So we'll get through this one more time. We gotta head up this way. And something else you have to keep in mind with is that these floors are not always like that one right there. These bricks are fake. So unfortunately my jump did not work at all. We gotta go up these stairs. Alright, see if we can get this to work second time around. The controls are a bit frustrating, I will give you that. There we go. And again, where the holy water comes in really helpful is that as you drop them, if there is a fake brick that you may walk into, it will notate where it is. So like I'm okay here. Now I jump up this way, go up these stairs, minding the spikes. And here is the oak stake vendor. And there's one of them in every mansion, because they have to be here. Because the only way you can obtain the piece of Dracula's corpse is by hitting the orb that it is encased in with an oak stake. Pick that up. A flame flickers inside the ring of fire. Now, some of these hints are fairly cryptic. And not everything every person in town tells you is accurate either. So you see where this skeleton turned around. That's where you want to be able to make sure you drop the holy water, because if you go through those bricks, there's water down below, and it could end up being the death of you. And here is the orb. So I want to switch over from the holy water to the oak stake, and up and B. Open it up. And we now possess Dracula's rib. And having Dracula's rib is really nice, because it essentially is now we have a shield. So instead of going all the way back through, we can drop down here, have him come over, take care of him, take this guard out, take that gargoyle out, go up this way. Whoop, pick that heart up really fast. And we're right back where we started. But you'll notice that the lift I used to get up here is gone. So now that I have this here, I can put this back, and there's the lift. And there are different things that you need to get in order to be able to, again, unlock ways through Dracula's mansion, as well as being able to just find the mansions themselves. So like the next one I would have to get would be after I get Dracula's eye. Is you need that to be able to get access to the third mansion that comes later on. But we're not going to deal with that for right now. I'm just going to head back to town, and then we'll wrap this up because we're at 33 minutes. But that, in a nutshell, is Castlevania II Simon's Quest from 1987 for the NES. Now, the usual parameters. Is this a good game? For myself, yes, I believe it is. Is it the best Castlevania game? No. I think you could easily make the argument, depending on your particular preferences, that Castlevania 1 or Castlevania 3, if those were games you liked, were far better. If you played Castlevania Bloodlines, or Rondo of Blood, which was the ones that featured Richter Belmont and were essentially the games that fed into Symphony of the Night, you could say those are better. I would easily say that Symphony of the Night is still the best Castlevania game I've ever played. However, I stand by my original thesis that you would not have Symphony of the Night if Simon's Quest did not create the proof of concept that was later perfected in the 32-bit generation by SOTN. If you agree, disagree, leave me a comment about it. Tell me your experience with it. Could this game be made today? Sure it could. But the question would be, is with how convoluted Castlevania games have gotten as a franchise, would it be worth it to do? I mean, and also would they make it the same way? Would they do it as a side-scroller? Probably not. It would. They did try to do three-dimensional Castlevania games for the PS1 after Symphony of the Night and the PS2. If I remember right, I think the PS3. But on like the Game Boy or on the Nintendo DS and the 3DS, they kept with this 2D formula. So you could go either way with it. I think that Castlevania is at its best when it's this sort of 2D side-scrolling game, and I don't know a lot of people who would disagree with me on that. So, you know, and also would they want to completely reboot the lore with Simon and start from square one again? I think the fact that this was one of the first games that had multiple endings in it, I think that because it's got the time clock aspect to it, that has the inventory system, that has the experience system, I don't see why anybody who was into classic RPGs or even modern RPGs wouldn't find this to be an interesting game. That it's also Konami that makes it very much lessens the possibility that we would ever see it, which is a sad thing for me. I think that's a shame that Konami's gone in the directions that they have, and that franchises like this, we probably won't see such things potentially happen in our lifetimes, depending on how old you are. So, but do I think you should give it a try? Sure. If you tried the original Castlevania and you got frustrated by it, and Castlevania 3 was of a similar feel to you, Castlevania 2 is hard to go wrong with. Yes, it's not the same game, but it was made by the same people, it was built with the same ideas in mind, and at the end of the day, it is a critical part of the Castlevania franchise and the Castlevania mythos to have it in here, because it wraps up the original protagonist Simon Belmont's story, depending on how long it takes you to finish it. So, give it a try, and if so, let me know your experience with it. I'm playing this on the Messen emulator, MESEN, which is a free emulator, and let me know what your experience is. But that's WTF Wednesday for this week. As always, if you've enjoyed the content, hit that like button, subscribe if you are new, ring the bell to be notified for the latest content. We will have more of our first-time playthrough of Dark Souls coming up again this weekend. And as I stated on our one-day playthrough on Monday, which I hope you tuned in for, as we went through and played the classic NES game Shadowgate, I'm on vacation for the next couple of weeks, so I am planning to backlog and compile a series of both WTF Wednesday and one-day playthrough features that I'll be able to roll into 2024. That way I've got some content fresh on the hopper to be able to go out to you guys along with the Dark Souls playthrough. So that is part of my plan for this 2 weeks I am off, and I intend to make the most of it. So be sure to follow us on social media through Instagram and Threads. It runs Retrocade. Spread the word about us. We're right there. Near as makes no difference. 100 subscribers. And big thank you to everybody who has done so and hit that subscribe button over the last 18 months or so. Your patronage and your spreading the word about us is, as always, most appreciated. And if there's a game you would like to see us feature from the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo, Sega Master System, Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, SNK Neo-Geo, Nintendo 64, Sega Saturn, Sega Dreamcast, Sony PS1 or PS2, leave it in the comments below, or drop me a line on social media. It can be any game from those consoles that you want. My name is Ronan. I've clearly talked enough for a day. Be safe out there, happy gaming, and we will talk to you again this weekend as we carry on with Dark Souls Remastered. Bye!